Okay, so we have 24 numbers. Now it's one-dimensional array, and then we can use the reshape to reshape it. Okay, once again, remember when you multiply the size of each dimension, that should exactly equal the number of elements, the length of the data that we supply. If the data we supply and the product of this do not correspond, then you'll get an error. Okay, so here we have first dimension, we have 2 elements. Okay, and then when you go inside the first element, okay, you have 2 dimensions there. The first is 3, and then we have, so that's why we have now 3 brackets, right? So on the outside, the first dimension we starts from here to here. That's the first element in the first dimension. This is the second element, okay, of the first dimension. So there are 2 elements in the first dimension. Now we go into the second dimension. So in second dimension, so we have 3 elements, 1, 2, and 3. These are the 3 elements of the second dimension. Again, this you have 3 elements, second dimension, in the second element of the first dimension as well. Okay. Now you go into the third dimension, so you go one more level inside, then you have 4 elements, so that's that. Okay. So reshape now reshapes the initial range into that. Now shape can be entered directly with, so well, we have already seen this before, so you can just chain several operations by adding a dot and then continuing. So we have NP rand int, and then so here instead of saying 24, you specify the shape, then that shape is used into that array and you get the same result. Okay. Now the properties of NumPy are ndim, shape, and so if you take AR3 and look for ndim, number of dimensions, it gives you 3. So if you ask for shape, it's going to tell you, shape will give you the number of elements in each dimension. Okay. And then data type, D type, will give you the data type. Okay. And finally, accessing, how do you, if you have a NP array, how do you access a particular element inside that array? Okay. It's like what we have seen before. So you do that using square brackets. Okay. So if you specify, so let's look at AR3. Okay, let's add one here. So AR3 again. Let's print that. So we have that. So we can specify 3 coordinates. Okay. The first number is for first dimension, second number is for second dimension, third number is for the third dimension. So here first number is the first dimension. So first dimension we have that as one element and that as a second element, right? So now this number 1 specifies which of these 2 elements that we want to choose. So when you use the number 1, which of these two, the top one or the bottom one? Yeah, remember the index numbers in Python starts from 0. So that 0, this is 1. Okay, so 1 is that. Okay, and the second, okay, so now here the second dimension we have 3 arrays, or you can say for our purposes 3 lists. They are not lists, they are arrays. So there are 3 of them, right? The 3 of them, we want the index 2. Okay, once again, that is 0, that's 1, that is 2. So the 1 stands for that, 2 stands for the last row there, and then 3. Okay, so that's the, you go into the third dimension, so 0, 1, 2, 3. So then you get 1. So that's the element that is specified by these 3 coordinates. Okay. Now if you specify only a single number within the square brackets, then that's going to be taken as the first dimension. In the first dimension, I want index number 1, so which is the second table. So that's what you see here. Okay. Now you can use colon for any one of the dimensions. Okay, so that means everything in that dimension. So I start with the colons, that means in the first dimension, I want everything in that dimension. Both, so there are 2 tables, so I want both of them. That's what that colon stands for. In the second dimension, I have 1. So I want the index 1 in the second dimension. And I'm not specifying anything on the third dimension, so that means I want all from the third dimension. So now we have 2 tables. Okay, so this is the first dimension. So 2 elements. I want both the elements. And I want index 1. So that means when you go to the second dimension has 3 elements. I want the second one. The 1 here stands for that. So from the first element, I want that. The second element, I want that. So that's what you see here. Okay. So here another example. So AR3. Now from the first dimension, I want index 0. So that means I want only the first one, not the second one. I want only that. I want to consider only that. Okay. The second dimension, I want all 3 in the second dimension to be included. And from the third dimension, I want index 2. So that will be 0, 1, 2. So that will be 5, 7, and 5. Right? So when you have 3 dimensions, it could be, I mean, remember that you can have any number of dimensions here, 5, 6, 7, 8, and so on. 3 is enough for us. All right, so let's look at question number 4. So create a 2-dimensional NumPy array of random integers between 50 and 99 with 4 elements in the first dimension and 5 elements in the second dimension. All right. So for the sake of reproducibility, let's start with NP random seed 1. Okay. So we all will have the same answer. and then we want NP random. Okay. So NP library, we want the functions that fall under the group called random. So in random, then we want to use what? Random integers. So I want rand int. Okay. Rand int. Okay. So rand int, I need to specify first the range from which we want random numbers to be generated, right? And that is 50 and 99. Okay, so 50 and 99. And then here we want 20 elements, so you can say 20 and then reshape it, or you can give the shape itself in the number of elements that we want. So you can give a shape as a tuple. So you say 4, 5. Okay. Now that's going to generate our array. Okay. Let's save this array because we need that in question number 5. So let's say AR Q4, so array question 4, okay, and then we say AR Q4, so we can print it. So now we have this array saved in AR Q4. Okay. Now access and display the third element of the array in the second dimension. Okay. So AR Q4. Okay. Now we have to specify the coordinates inside square brackets. Okay. So we want the third element in the second dimension. Okay. So apparently we want all the elements from the first dimension. Right? Access and display third element of the array in the second dimension. So we want all elements from the first dimension. So what should we say for that? All elements from the first dimension should be colon. Okay. Then the second dimension, we want the third element. So the index for the third element is 2. Okay. So all elements, so all 4 arrays from the first dimension. In the second dimension, we want the third, so 62, 65, 57, and 87. Okay.